Hello everyone and welcome back to Nagash channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video we're going to talk about why play Ossiarch Bonereapers. So this is the next video in the why play army video series that I've started, and the Bonereapers want it, so let us crack on with them. So firstly, let's talk a little bit about their lore. So the Bonereapers are one of Nagash's greatest creations, arguably his best creation, as they are endless legions of bone constructs that have been forged by Nagash's craftings himself. Essentially, the Bonereapers are the next plan for Nagash on the offensive. Essentially, he's always had this idea to make his own elite legion, almost like Stormcast but for death. And how it all happened is back when the Necroquake happened and the Soul Wars, which are sort of covered in various videos, but also in the last Why Play talking about Nighthaunt. The Nighthaunt raised up and essentially just slaughtered everyone, and that was that weapon that was used. And then Nagash took the opportunity to then start expanding on his plan to create this Master Elite Legion, being the Bonereapers. And also, I believe that Kurdos was then released from the Storm Vault that imprisoned him, and he is the Mortarch of the Necropolis, who is the leader named character for the Bonereaper faction. So he broke out. Basically, the army started slow, as Bonereapers is not an army that suddenly just boom, loads of them all created out of thin air. They are an army that was quite small and grew over time. Now, how do they grow, you ask? By collecting bones. But how do the Bonereapers reap the tithes of bones? What they do is, when they expand into new kingdoms and new territories, could be a neutral fortification, a fort, or a castle, something like that, or it could just simply be a hamlet in the realm of death. The Bonereapers will approach, and they will say to the inhabitants of that said location, give us a tithe of bones, and this will be a regular tithe that you must provide to your Lord and Saviour Nagash. And if you provide us with this tithe, we don't have to go with Plan B. And then the residents will ask, what is Plan B? And Plan B is the Bonereapers will go and kill every single inhabitant of that said location and take the bones that way. So the inhabitants think, they don't think for too long, they think, right, okay, I'm sure we can find a few bones lying around. So what they do at that point, they gather all the bones. They go, oh yeah, the graveyard's got a bunch of bones, they're not doing anything, are they? Bit disrespectful to the dead. However, this is Age of Sigmar, let's dig them up and give them to the Bonereapers. We can pay the tithe that way, so that's absolutely fine. And then some time will pass, and the Bonereapers will come back for the next tithe. And at that point, the citizens of the location, the kingdom, the hamlet, whatever it is, then have to say to themselves, right, we've given all of our deceased, there's only been a few more who have died since then, and it's not going to be enough. We can't fight these guys, so we're going to have to take a sacrifice, in the sense of everyone in the village cuts off a finger, something like that. Or we do a lottery, and whoever pulls the shortest straw has to sacrifice themselves for the Bonereapers, something along those lines. But then eventually, the really incredibly sinister point of this is it gets to a point where all the inhabitants are having to lob off like their limbs and everything like that, and then they just have got nothing more to give to the Bonereapers. So at that point, the tithe is not paid. The tithe of bones for the Ossiarch Bonereapers has not been received. So the Ossiarch Bonereapers then go with Plan B, which is to exterminate and recycle all the bodily materials of the inhabitants of the locations. And at that point, the inhabitants are a case of, they're probably missing like an arm and a leg at this point, so they can't really fight for themselves. So it's just an easy win. So the Ossiarch Bonereapers at first appear to be very diplomatic, very not completely aggressive. Oh yeah, like, sword point, they're saying, give us your dead corpses, or, we're going to kill you. But at least they give you a choice. However, it's more sinister than that. It's along the lines of, they are the Ossiarch Bonereapers are farmers attending their flock. So what do they do with all these bones? If you haven't already gathered it, is that they use these bones to craft more constructs for their Bone Reaper army. So if you look at each, you know, I don't know, a Mortek Guard, for instance, a standard Bone Reaper skeleton warrior, if you like. Now, if you look at the model, some people are, oh, they're a bit funny looking, and that's because, like, for example, one of those Mortek Guard, that's not, you know, a person who's died. They've been rested in the ground and then they get resurrected as a skeleton. That's not actually a person. That is lots of different types of bones that have been morphed and shaped into that construct. So that's why it's got a big smiley green and everything else. It could be made out of like 1.5 people. So, and all the sort of like armor plating it has, generally it's just really rock solid bone. It's not, you know, like metal or something like that. They do tend to have a shield and shoulder pads, but most of their armor is actually made out of bone, which is quite interesting as well. And then this goes on more to things like the Death Riders, you know, the cavalry. You've also got the Stalkers, which are like the souls of 4 people in them, with made out of, you know, 4, you know, long deceased warriors. And the great thing about that is that means that when these Stalkers are fighting, they can change their fighting stance to whatever situation gives them, because they rely on the experience of the souls trapped within them, as there's 4 of them, to be able to get themselves out of any situation. And then you will see that get transferred into the rules, where they can reroll save rolls for, you know, a combat phase, or you know, hit rolls, wound rolls, or +1 to rend and damage, I believe. So you can see where the lore was transferred into the rules there. And then also Nagash has used this massive you know, army that has been gathering in momentum almost. You know, it's almost like a snowball going down a mountain. Or, you know, starts off small, but the more tithes they reap, inevitably they just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And he's used it to invade the 8 points. Now, I'm not going to say what happens and stuff in the 8 points, because that's not the point of this video, and I don't want to sort of spoil it in case anyone is reading that. But he has used it as his, you know, sledgehammer, along with Nighthorn in that narrative campaign, to be wielded as the strongest army. So, yes, that's cool. It's almost like the Legions of Nagash are the, you know, backbone, bread and butter for Nagash's army, and then the Ossiarch Bonereapers are actually his elite, you know, special forces type. So that's cool, and that's essentially just a little bit about the lore. You could talk about the lore, you know, for hours and hours and hours. That's not what this video is about. So now you understand who the Ossiarch Bonereapers are. Let's talk a little bit about what they're like to collect. Are they really the army for you? As like I say, it's a why play video, so hopefully by the end of the video you establish if you would like to start the army or not. Okay, so let's just talk about a few strengths, okay? So firstly, again, like I said in the Legions of Nagash video, Nagash is the best because Nagash is in charge, really, of all of death, almost. So he's in charge of these guys, it's his legion. I know you've got the Mortarch of the Necropolis, but Nagash is still, you know, the regional manager. You know, Kurlos is sort of just a assistant to the regional manager in this situation. So yeah, Nagash is awesome, obviously. Right, and then actually talking about serious stuff. So, strengths, you've got the latest models range for Death. Nighthorn wasn't that far, you know, not too much older, but inevitably Bonereapers are the newest models. Now, admittedly, they are hit and miss. So, to be honest, this probably won't be something I bring up that's going to sway you one way or the other, because if you just look at the models, you're going to tell if you like them or not. For me, at first, I wasn't a massive fan, but as soon as I found out about their lore and found out that that's not a skeleton that was resurrected from the grave, that's actually been shaped and it's a construct, I was like, oh, that's why it looks different. I just thought, why does it look different? That's weird. And now I understand why. And it's like, okay, I'm happy with that. That's fine. There's some models. To be honest, I say there's some models. There's one model I don't really like in the range, and that is just the big harvester with a corpse cart on its back and the short stumpy legs and the skeleton for a penis. It's just a bit too weird for me. I would love to have that for a bits box. I think would be great, but the model itself, not a huge fan. But for me, that's the only bit. All the other models I do like. It's really cool. It's really cool to see like things like massive catapults and see a really, like I mentioned multiple times this word in this video already, a legion force. I know you've got Legion of Nagash, but just to see a proper regimental legion where if you compare them to skeleton warriors, you know, like their shields are like meant to be broken and rusted, and their spears are all eroded and all that sort of thing. Their swords. These guys' weapons are literally forged for them in, I don't know, furnaces by souls or something like that. These weapons are forged for them. They're not just found lying around near where they died. This is a, in sense of, in the real life, it's a brand new army because it's very new. But also, in Age of Sigmar, it's a death army that is brand new and forged, not resurrected. So, yeah. I think that's a pretty cool thing. And some of the models are really, really quite nice. Like I called him Kurdos. He's not Kurdos. He's Catacross. Kurdos is the Craven King, I believe, for the Nighthorn. And I know I've got him stuck in my head because I read a comment yesterday on a video of mine, and I don't know why that bloody name stuck in my head. But apologies for that. His name is not Kurdos. It is Catacross. So apologies about that. But anyway, so Catacross is a fantastic model. I was going to say he's almost diorama. He is a diorama on a base. He's got other like hero models with him. He's got that cool samurai guy. He's got that banner guy. He's got like the guy with like I think like the dead crow messenger. It's very cool and very heroic, shall we say? Or to be honest, not heroic. That's not the word. It's very grand how he's standing upon the sort of like steps up to the rock, holding his shield. He's not even like in a fighting pose. He's just knows that the enemy's not even going to get to him, sort of thing. Which is cool. And yeah, like I say, so the models are really nice. So yeah, you'll know if you like them or not. Right. So the next thing to talk about with Bonereapers, of course, is we can't talk about Bonereapers without mentioning Petra Fit Elites, which, if you are unaware, is a sub-allegiance for your Bonereapers. It's like a legion you can take within the Bonereapers, like to give them a few more extra abilities, which a lot of books have got. And you probably are aware of Petra Fit Elite, but if you're not, essentially, its main ability is it gives your army +1 save, army wide. You don't need to be within range of a hero, you just get it army-wide. Which is really quite incredible compared to practically most other buffs you will get from a sub-allegiance. And that is why there's a bit of stigma around it, because it almost feels like that's the one you have to go for. It's the best sub-allegiance. You have to take it. +1 save. It's just too good to say no. And if you're playing super competitively, I have to agree. You have to take it because it's the best one. It almost feels like some of the points cost for some of the units in the army have been made for that +1 save in mind, which you can kind of understand, but sort of makes it annoying for if you don't take Petra Elite. However, Petra Elite is the sub-allegiance that has given the army this stigma, because it now means that your Mortec Guard normally have a 4-up save, now have a 3-up save, and then their command ability for the shields allows them to reroll save rolls, and that's your standard basic infantry unit. It's got a 3-up save re-rolling. If it's within terrain feature, it's got, a 2-up save re-rolling. It, with only failing a 1s on that, and you get to re-roll it in that situation. So that is why there is a stigma behind it. And but fuck it. There's Slanesh who just basically walks up to the enemy, and if they don't have any shooting, just kills them instantly, and then generates more Slanesh models, which was they've nerfed it a bit, but not as much. The Terrorgeist that just does insane amount of damage. There's not like Petra Fit Elite is the only thing out there. But it is the strongest thing to go for if you want to make competitive lists for your Bonereapers. But what I will say on that note is, yes, it is currently the best right now. However, there are lots of different sub-allegiances with some really fun ways to play. There are sub-allegiances that allow you to run in charge, for everything in your army, I believe. There's ones for when models die, they blow up and can do mortal wounds to the enemy. There's ones where, like on the lore side, the bones that are used to make this a legion of Bonereapers were from like an Ivory Coast situation where they're made from like the bones of beasts and monsters and behemoths. So that makes that the Bonereapers are sort of possessed a little bit by the souls of those monsters and creatures, which makes them more berserkish and means that they're more offensive, all that sort of thing. So there's lots of things that you can do with here, which is really quite nice. And that's why I wanted to say to you guys, like, get out of the way. Yes, Petra Fit Elite is the best right now for competitive play. No way about it, in my honest opinion. but do take a look at the other sub-allegiances because they can be really fun. Essentially, what I want to say about this point is don't be put off collecting Ossiarch Bonereapers because you're afraid that you're going to take them, you're going to get that 1+ save, and people are just not going to enjoy playing against you. If that does turn out to be the case, play a different sub-allegiance. You don't have to play that one, and there are some really fun ones out there. Okay, so I just need to get that out of the way because otherwise people would have mentioned Petra Fit Elites. Right, so I would say that another good point about them is they are the most elite death army, being incredibly durable for things like I said, particularly if you do go Petra Fit Elite. You know, your basic infantry having a 3-up save re-rolling is great. Your even things like your Stalkers going from a 4-up save to a 3-up save. Your Death Riders, again, 4 to 3-up save. If you take Nagash in the army, if you really want to, he now has a 2-up save. Reroll 1 through his command ability. I don't think it's worth taking Nagash because you're investing too many points, but maybe you can make it work. Arkan now has a 3-up save. Thank fuck, because he only has 11 wounds. You know, this is obviously if you go Petra Fit Elite, but that's sort of what I was talking about. I just wanted to mention that you could take other ones if you want to explore a bit. So it's incredibly durable. Even if you don't go Petra Elite, to be fair, a 4-up save for death armies, and things have re-rollable saves, like I said, the Mortec Guard, is very good. And also they've got, like resurgence abilities via, Bone Shapers, Arkan, Nagash, Harvesters. If you really want to go heavy on bringing back your models, you can do it quite well, this army. So, yeah, and to be fair, there's a lot of different varieties of ways that you can play this army. Like I said, it's very elite, but you could try and do a horde with your elite infantry being your Mortec Guard. You could go a full cavalry army with your Death Riders, or you could go like, I don't know, Stalker heavy, let's say. So, those General Grievous guys, like I was mentioning earlier with the 4 heads and the 4 arms. You could go for those guys who really like to because they can be pretty solid. Or you can finally have an incredibly heavy shooting death army with the Mortec Crawler catapults. Now, some people say that they're overpowered, they're stupid, all that sort of thing. I would say I've used them a few times, because when I've been playing with some of my Bonereapers, I'll use 3 of them. I've been proxying them because I haven't bought 3. But what I would say with the Mortec Crawlers is a case of they're great if you're going against something like Skaven, but if you're going against something with a good standard save, like I've been fighting Slaves of Darkness, majority of your shots don't go through, even with 3. So I thought when I looked at them, I was like, hang on, these guys are overpowered, these catapults. But I want to test them out before, I basically, go on the internet and say these things are overpowered. And I tested them out, and I was like, oh, so I've done like 2 rounds of shooting now with 3 catapults, and I haven't got any damage through. Now, admittedly, that, can be unlucky dice, but if you're going against something with like a 4-up save re-rolling, you haven't got any rend. What I will say, though, is that when you do get one of those through, it's just like a nice splat, 5 damage, Nice and simple. And if you're going against, 2 win models, that's, like 2.5 models down. If you're going against, 1 win models, it's 5 models. It's a lot, and it's going to probably make the enemy have to start thinking about Battle Shock. So even with just 1 going through, they think they hit on a 2, they win on a 3. If you take Soul Masons, you can make them reroll 1s to hit if you get your spells off. You can really do a lot of these guys. If you want to, you can make them have extra attacks. There are ways for you to get reroll 1s to wound with the named character, guy on his skeletal horse, or get reroll 1s to wound for the catapults, or you can get reroll all failed wound rolls for that particular ability if the enemy's chaos. So there is a lot you can do with the catapults, and the reason why I've been talking about catapults for a while is because I quite like that. I'm not used to playing with shooting at all, so it was a nice welcome addition in the terms of how I play games, so I very much enjoyed it. And yeah, like I say, they are very strong. I wouldn't say they're overpowered. And they've got a good way of wiping out half an enemy unit through the tricks of the Battle Shock phase, which I'm sure a few of you are aware of. Right, yeah, so you've got essentially just loads of variety you can do with the army if you want to do. So again, like I sort of mentioned earlier, with magic, you can do a lot of magic with this army. You've got some standard good casters. You've got a good spell lore. If you take Arkan, he knows all the spells from the lore, so he can pick and choose when he wants, which is absolutely amazing. If you take Nagash, he can do the same as well, but Arcan is going to be less than half the points for Nagash. So I favour Arcan, as you can just put him in there as a 2-cast wizard, and it just gives them lots of options for spells. When do you need them? Do you suddenly need to make your Nagash weapons for your Mortec Guard or your Death Riders? Suddenly, do extra exploding, or do you need to give them a better mortal wound save? Do you need to try and make something teleport to the other side of the board? Do you need to try and make the enemy take mortal wounds and they attack you? There's lots of different options it just gives you, which is nice. Do you need some extra discipline points? You can get them. It's just a really nice trick without you having to pick all your spells at the start. Just gives you lots of options. So I'd generally say, for me, Arcan's quite a solid choice for a list. Doesn't work in all the lists, but it's definitely worth giving a go. So if you got one from your Legions of the Nagash collection, he will not be missed out in this army. Right, and then a minute ago I did mention the discipline points. So what is that? And that is what makes this army play different to every other army in Age of Sigmar. That's right, Ossiarch Bonereapers play different to every other army. And I know you could say that about every army. Well, of course it plays different. It's got different abilities, different models, obviously. But when it comes to how the use of command points are, this is completely different. The Ossiarch Bonereapers don't even use command points. They do still generate them for purposes if you play against Kurdos and he tries to steal those command points from you, it still does happen. So as they do not use their command points, the Ossiarch Bonereapers use discipline points. Now discipline points are essentially, like I say, command points. But how they work differently is that you can generate a lot more of them. They only last for a battle round, and they can only be spent on command abilities from the Ossiarch Bonereaper book or from the command abilities on the War Scrolls of your Ossiarch Bonereapers. And yes, if you're wondering, Nagash and Arcan do gain the keyword for Ossiarch Bonereapers. And how that works is quite simply, it means you might think, well, what, command abilities are missing out then. You got, Inspiring Presence, the one that lets you run 6, the one that makes you be able to re-roll charges, and then the 3 other newer ones. That I'm sure Cowden Overlord players can answer for me. Which are things like, I think they're like re-rolls to hit or wound or save or something. So you do miss out on those, but you get some very nice ones of your own. For example, the Mortec Guard, get one. That's right, standard infantry, just War Scrolls that aren't even heroes. Pretty much all of them, not everyone, but pretty much all of them have command abilities to use. Like I say, Mortec Guard, get the rerolls to save. The Death Riders can do mortal wounds to the enemy on the charge. The Stalkers can do things like run in charge and be able to climb over terrain. There's lots of stuff you can do with them, which is absolutely great. Now, some turns, how you generate them is quite random. Essentially, I don't have the book right in front of me, so I'm not going to say exactly how it's, but you'll get one for every Ossiarch Bonereaper hero you have. You also get 2 instead of 1 if that's a Liege hero, so that's going to be your Liege Cavalos, that sort of thing, the hero guy riding the skeleton horse. And then what you do is you roll a dice for each Bonereaper unit on the table in your army, and for each 6 you generate a discipline point. So it can be quite random, but you can build your army to get as many discipline points as possible. Like I said, there's a spell out there in their lore that gives you D3 more discipline points, so you can use that to help you. You can take, if you take Cash Cross, he gives you a flat 3 discipline points each turn as well. So you can really start stacking them up if you really want to. And what this means, though, as you've got lots of discipline points, that means you're going to be doing lots of command abilities, aren't you? Because a lot of the command abilities, unlike most command abilities out there that tend to go, this is in effect until your next hero phase, a lot of them they're just in effect this turn or this phase. So that means that you're going to be triggering them a lot more. So that means there's going to be a lot more micromanagement. So that means you need to stay on top of things. Like if it says you have to announce you're doing this command ability at the start of the combat phase, at the start of the movement phase, at the start of the shooting phase. If it says you have to say at the start and you forget and you're playing a competitive game, that's it. You've messed up. you're not going to get your ability off and you're going to be pissed off. So what that means is you need to remember, and there's a really easy way to do this, make a cheat sheet. Now I usually go on Microsoft Word and just like do some bullet points on what I need to remember. However, someone mentioned to me about AOS reminders. I had a quick look on it. Just go on there, guys. There's a fantastic, I don't know who he is, but a fantastic guy on there who basically does these cheat sheets for you. And well, when I mean a cheat sheet, if you're wondering what actually cheating, no, it's basically just writing notes for you not to forget during the game. It makes a huge difference. So yes, there are a lot of micromanagement. You might think, oh, I don't really want to do that, because then you're thinking that you're not going to be enjoying it. You're just worrying about making sure all this stuff gets triggered off. But the micromanagement is hugely rewarding. Like I say, just by going, oh, yeah, the Mortec Guard, the unit of 40 I've got there, the unit of 30, whatever it is. Right, yep, they're re-rolling all failed saves. Right, okay, now that's unit that probably has a free up save, re-rolling 1s and 2s. Just because you mentioned it. And it's because you won discipline point, but you might have 4 more to go. Or you can use one, again, Petra Fit Elites allows your unit to have an extra -1 rend. There's lots of good things out there, but it does require more micromanagement, and that's what makes it different to the other armies out there, but very, very rewarding. Okay, so we've talked for about a solid 20 minutes on basically strengths of the army, but inevitably there are going to be weaknesses, and that's not like, oh, why are there weaknesses? Obviously, if there wasn't weaknesses to this army, then the game would be in a really shit state. So, right, the weaknesses for the army, let's go over them. So, firstly, what I'm going to say is, this is sort of like on the table. Mortal wounds. This is the biggest weakness of this army. If you want to wipe this army out, use mortal wounds, and you could go, well, these guys have got a spell to allow you to ignore mortal wounds at a 5-up. Yep, they only do that if you've got a shield. If you haven't got a shield, you're screwed. Basically, if you're not your Mortec Guard or your Death Stalkers, you ain't going to benefit from this ability for shit. So that is a big weakness of this army. I had a game against Stage Darkness a little while ago, and the Stage Darkness did dished out something in the region between 30 to 40 mortal wounds in a turn. He got very incredibly lucky with his spells and then the spells, and did that to me. I then spent the rest of the game trying to recover from it, essentially, and I lost because, quite purely honestly, I just overestimated the durability of the Bonereapers, and I did say they're incredibly endurable. They are, but mortal wounds, not so much. If you make sure that you're basically the leader of your units are within basically the centre of that unit, so hopefully your whole unit's within 6 inches of him, then you'll get your death save. But a 6 of death save wasn't enough. So, yeah. Mortal wounds. They do have some defence, but for an army that is their, with really strong armour essentially, that is their chink in their armour. The other thing to talk about is that they are expensive in points. There is no cheap battle line option for this army. Your cheapest battle line is going to be 10 Mortec Guard for 130 points. Which, if you like elite armies, absolutely cool. No worries at all. But if you love just having literally hundreds and hundreds of models, this is not really going to be the army for you. It's not like Legions of Nagash where you can, spend 70 points and get, 5 dire walls or something. Just, quick battle line there, just nice and cheap. Get free units of 5 dire walls and then spend all the points and everything else. No, the minimum you're going to have to spend in this army for your battle line is going to be 390 points to get your battle line done. So that you really only have 1,600 points. If you really want to push it, you've got 1,610 points left by the time you had a hero in. So there's not loads of room to be the most creative, but if you want to take a lot of Mortec Guards, it's not really going to be a problem. You can take Death Riders instead. That's where you want to go, sort of more focus on cavalry. A lot of people said stuff about Death Riders, not a fan of them. I think a unit of 5 is solid because for an army that can move fast, but it's not the fastest army, the Death Riders can be your speed unit you need to quickly get to objectives. And the models are smaller than I expected. I thought they'd be the size of Chaos Knights. They are not. They are more along the sides of Black Knights, and that's absolutely great. And the reason for that is because that means their bases are smaller, so they're more effective in the game, which is what they really need to be for those big, massive bases. You get units of 10 Chaos Knights. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't. The bases are just too big. So, yeah. And just quick talk about on the cavalry, I would say units of 10 go with spears, units of 5 go with swords. And when you're with that as well, the Mortec Guard just go swords because their bases will allow you to attack in 2 ranks. Right, okay, so the other thing to say about them, so that's sort of the game point of view, and talking about more along the lines of real life. They have no start collecting box yet. With the recording of this video being the 11th or the 3rd, 2020. They have no start collecting box. Yeah, you can get Feast of Bones. You can still find it around, and that's not a bad start. But then you ended up with some ogres. You might not want the ogres. Everything else with those big boxes. So you might end up buying this army one box at a time, which is not the cheapest way to do it. Is what I will say. But there's not really any alternative. So you may want to wait until they ever start collecting box, but you may be waiting an incredibly long time. I mean, Nighthaunt still don't have a proper start collecting box. Cowden Overlords waited a long time. So, Daughters of Cain, they've only just got theirs, haven't they? And it's snakes, so I think it's cool because it's snakes, but competitively, it's not what people wanted. So, yeah. Don't hold on too long waiting for a start collecting box, but if you're in no rush, I suppose that's fine, but usually just bite the bullet and get the army. The army, money-wise, it's not the most expensive army to get into, but it's not the cheapest. It's not as cheap as starting a Flesh Eater Court army, that sort of thing, but it's not, in all terms of how expensive Warhammer is, it's not the most expensive in that sense. And then the only other weakness I really have for the army is the Sigmar that's attached to it. So I did talk about Sigmar earlier, didn't I? When I talked about Petra Fit Elite, and people think that army is not fun to fight against because it has two good... Not that it's got good saves, that is the fact that it's got two good saves. Just they're too good, too powerful. And like I said earlier, you don't have to take Petra Elite. If you're playing really competitively, fuck it, take Petra Elite. Be as competitive as you can be, because you can guarantee your opponent's going to be doing it, even if they say, oh, I don't really care about winning. If they're going to a tournament, they care about winning their games. So, take Petra Elite. If you're not playing really competitive, if you're just playing a nasty game, or you're just like, I'm just playing a friendly guy from the store, I don't really want to put him off my army. Don't feel like you're attached to Petra Elite. Take something else. Have some fun. Take the one where your models explode and do damage to the enemy. Not literally explode, but in the game. Take the one that lets you be able to run in charge, makes you incredibly fast. There's lots to do. Go like, I don't know, Frenzied, and take the ones where the Bonereapers are made from the remains of monsters. You can do loads with it. So don't let that stigma hold you back. Okay, so that's sort of what I want to talk about in this video. With the Bonereapers, that's pretty much it. What I want to say. Essentially, the Bonereapers, awesome new models, great in the game. Some people would say, oh, well, they're really easy to win with because of Petra Elite, but to a skilled general, you could do incredibly well with them, even more so, not just because they've got that +1 to save, because of all the micromanagement that's involved. It means you've got lots of rewards to reap for your effort you put in there. And if you just like an awesome looking death army with cool characters and great looking models, it's the army for you. Okay guys, so that is the end of the video. I hope I've helped you if you're thinking about starting the army or not. Either way, I hope you make a good choice and you're happy with what army you go for. If you're still thinking about different sort of armies maybe you want to go for, take a look at my Why Play series. I've got quite a lot of armies I've sort of reviewed already. There's about, I think, 4 other armies I've reviewed, so go check that out for sure. Okay, so I want to thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as it absolutely is free for you guys to do so, and massively does help support the channel. If you'd like to become a patron, you can find a link, and it really does help support the channel, and I'd like to thank every single one of my patrons for all the work they do, and it does mean this channel can make as many videos as possible. And that's pretty much it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.